Sheffield Park. And then goals of tonight, to discuss and try to arrive at consensus on the size and cost of the City Hall, the chamber facilities, and what will be done with the old library, the old City Hall, and to discuss and try to arrive at consensus on what facilities will be built at the sports complex and the size of the facilities and the costs involved. These two items will be on tomorrow night's agenda for discussion and possible action. And tonight there will be no vote taken. This is a workshop. This is a time for talking and discussion. So these items will be decided tomorrow night, perhaps. So just a couple of items that I wanted to bring up, and then we'll move on to public commentary. But we have three options that have been presented to us by Florida architects for the City Hall complex. And those options range in price from $5.8 million all the way to $12.2 million, deciding on whatever the size and scope of that is. So that's a great difference, and something that I wanted to bring before the public so that we could hear what the citizens of Lynn Haven want, and so that you could also be here tonight to ask questions about maybe those things that you don't understand or that you want to have more information about. There are some questions about what to do with the old City Hall, the old library, and where would the new library be, and how big would it be, and those kinds of things. And then the sports complex, if you look at the plan that's been put forward, there's a lot that has been added that was not there before. So do we focus on replacing what was there and destroyed by the storm, just putting it back like it was? Or are we trying to build more? Do we have the money to build more? And every commissioner is going to have a chance to give their opinions tonight, to answer questions. It's not going to be a rushed meeting. That's why we wanted a separate night. And then there was one other item, and I don't mean this in any personal way at all, but I cannot talk about this with other commissioners except in a public meeting. So that's why I'm talking about it here, not to try and point any fingers or anything. So this concerns the spending, and this came to my attention at the last city meeting when I realized that we had committed $150,000 already in design and engineering fees, architectural and A&E fees, as we would call them. And when I saw that, I was a little taken aback because we don't have a contract yet with either firm. So I've been in conversation with our city attorney, and this is not about just Mrs. Gaynor, our city manager now. This is about past city managers and future city managers. We've set a limit of $35,000 that a city manager can spend without commission approval. And every 2 weeks, as the mayor and treasurer of the city, I have a list of warrants to look through, warrants being a check. They're written by the city. And so at the last one that I received, there was a check for $40,000 to Florida architects. And so I wanted it not sent until I had a chance to ask the city attorney. If you've not been an ostrich with your head in the sand, you know what kind of rigorous questioning and involvement has happened in Lynn Haven about finances over the last 2 years. And no matter whether I am really responsible for the finances or not, my title is treasurer, and as most of you know, the buck stops here. And so I said to the city attorney, I want clarification. And he says that by Florida statute, the city manager was well within her purview to go forward and incur costs since the city had agreed to use Florida architects and DAG as our architects. I disagree with that, because to be able to write a check for $150,000 without bringing it before the commission, I believe goes beyond the spending power of the city manager. The city attorney and I are at odds on that question. But at the same point, no matter who is right or who is wrong, what I want the commission to think about, and I'm going to bring this up tomorrow night, and I want you to think about it, the costs that were incurred to come up with the drawings, the initial and the charge for presenting a workshop, and they really weren't detailed purchase orders, $150,000. And that was done without coming before this commission. And so I want the commission to think about, I went to an accountant outside of the city, a very respected accountant, and asked his opinion. And his thought to me was, first of all, we don't have a contract with either of these two firms yet. We anticipate having them, but we don't yet. And so there would have been probably a better thought that maybe these costs could have been brought before the commission before they were incurred. This accountant has suggested in the future that maybe perhaps any checks on this list of warrants that would be above whatever amount the commission wants to set. If there's a check for over $20,000 or a check for over $50,000, whatever the amount is, each commissioner get a list of those checks at one of our meetings, just to look through it and say, oh, what was that $289,000 check for? Well, it was a piece of equipment for sanitation. But I don't want to be the only one responsible for it. I think the whole commission needs to bear that responsibility. My job as mayor is not to go through every purchase order and every invoice. That is not my job. That's the city manager's job. But at the same point, this commission needs to be very aware. And unless one of you can tell me that you've been at City Hall going through every single purchase order and every single invoice for the last however many months that you've been a commissioner, then you really don't know. And so I'd really like for us to maybe think about this, and I'm going to bring it up in some more detail tomorrow. So those were kind of the points of the meeting tonight. We've already spent $150,000 in fees alone. That's a lot, and there's a lot more to be spent. So with that, those are my comments, and probably the only ones I'm going to make tonight. And after I'm going to go to item number 4, and this will be public commentary. I know we have several contractors here. We have several architectural firms here. I know we have the architectural firms that the city has selected for moving forward. And so anybody is welcome to speak tonight. I'm going to step out of character and not say 3 minutes, please, because we have a lot of time tonight to talk. And I don't want anybody to be cut off. At the same point, please do not come up here with the intention of taking 45 minutes. Please do not overdo. But I'm not going to say your 3 minutes is up and sit down. That's not how this meeting is going to go. And I want everyone to get whatever's on your chest off tonight, and I want you to be able to speak freely about what you think the city should do. So after the public commentary, then we'll move to discussion by the commission, and each one of these commissioners, I hope each of you, ladies and gentlemen, will speak your minds and your hearts tonight, and let's see if we can get an idea of where we're going, so when we get to the meeting tomorrow night that we're prepared to do something and take some action and give some direction to our city manager and staff and move forward in a good direction. So with that, I'd like to open